My dear students, by this time you have come to know the provision of 115O of the Income Tax Act. Under this section, the domestic company who pays dividend is liable to pay tax in the year in which it pays the dividend. It is clear to you. We have already discussed this provision. Now we will take some case studies which will be discussed before you. Case 1. Suppose XYZ Limited declares dividend of 5 lakhs. Calculate, how do you calculate the DDT, that is Dividend Distribution Tax, to be paid by the company? It is an Indian company. So, the company has to pay dividend tax for the year in which it pays the dividend. Here the company pays rupees 5 lakhs of dividend. So, as per provision, you have to gross up the dividend. How do you gross up? So, you have to calculate first the gross dividend. The 5 lakh rupees is dividend. So, the gross dividend would be 5 lakh into 100 by 85. That is, it becomes 5,88,235 rupees. Now, you have to calculate the dividend distribution tax. As per section 115O, the rate of dividend tax is the 15%. So, apply the 15% on rupees 5,88,235, which is the gross dividend. Then you add 12% surcharge, then add secondary and higher education cess 3%. So, you will get rupees 1,01,787. This is the dividend distribution tax which will be paid by the company, that is the Indian company. Here it is XYZ Limited. As per provision of the section 115O, the company is liable to pay tax on dividend which is distributed by the company. So, here it becomes 1,01,787. But you have to follow the procedure. First stage is to grossing up the dividend. Net, here the company pays dividend of 5 lakhs. So, you have to gross up. How do you gross up? 15% is dividend. So, 100 by 85 you have to gross up. We get 5,88,235. Then again you have to apply the tax rate on the gross dividend. This is 88,035. This is the dividend. Then you have to add the surcharge at the rate of 12%. Then you have to add the secondary and higher education cess at the rate of 3%. So, total dividend tax would be 1,01,787. Now, take the another case, because at the time of describing the provision of 115O, I have told you that the company, the domestic company who pays the dividend or distributes the dividend or declares the dividend is liable to pay tax. Here the dates are very vital: the declaration of dividend, the distribution of dividend, and payment of dividend. Here in this case, we have considered the declaration date and the payment date. Now, let us see what happens. Here the two types of companies I have given you. Here for our case, the companies declare and pay the dividend as per following schedule. XY Limited is the Indian company, AB Limited is also an Indian company, and XL Limited is a foreign company. So, what would be the taxability of these dividends? So, you have to calculate the tax liability and the date of payment for all companies. As per Income Tax Act and as per provision of the 115O section, the foreign company is not liable to pay tax on its dividend. So, here XL Limited is excluded. It is not liable to pay tax in India. However, this dividend of rupees 4 lakh will be taxable in the hands of the recipient. But for other two companies, that is for other two Indian companies, the DDT is required to be paid, since these are the Indian company or domestic company. Now, calculate the dividend first. So, we have to calculate the dividend tax only for Indian companies, that is XY Limited Company and the AB Limited Company. So what would be the amount? As per provision, you have to gross up the dividend first. So in first case, the XY Limited gross up the dividend first, 10 lakh rupees to be grossing up, and it will be computed as 11,76,471. Then you have to calculate the 15% of this gross dividend. Then you have to add surcharge at the rate of 12% and secondary and higher education cess at the rate of 3%. So this would be the dividend distribution tax liability for the company XY Limited. Now what would be the due date of payment? So you have to consider here the date of declaration of dividend and date of payment of dividend. We have given here only the declaration date and payment date, not distribution date is mentioned here. So you have to consider the declaration date and payment date. So the company is to pay the tax, the dividend distribution tax, within 14 days from whichever is earlier. So XY Limited, the date of declaration is 10th October 2017 and it is paid on 25th December 2017. So whichever is earlier. So declaration date is earlier. So the company is to pay the tax on or before the 14 days from whichever is earlier of declaration date and payment date. So it will be, in case of XY Limited, the due date of payment of DDT would be 24th October 2017. Now consider the case of AB Limited. AB Limited is also an Indian company. So it is liable to pay the DDT against its dividend. Now the first step is to grossing up the dividend. It pays rupees 8,50,000 as dividend. So you have to gross up. How do you gross up? I have shown here the procedure. It becomes as rupees 10 lakhs. This is the gross dividend. Now charge the DDT, dividend distribution tax. Dividend distribution tax is 15%. So add with this 15%, add surcharge 12% and secondary and higher secondary education 3%. So it will be the DDT. The 1,50,000 is the 15% tax rate and the surcharge and secondary and higher education cess. So you compute the DDT, dividend distribution tax, at the rate of 15% on gross dividend, that is 10 lakhs. It becomes 1,50,000. You have to add the surcharge at the rate of 12% and then you have to add the secondary and higher education cess at the rate of 3%. Now the question is, what would be the due date for payment of dividend distribution tax? Here AB Limited declares the dividend on 15th January 2018 and also it is paid on the same day, that is 15th January 2018. That is, the company, that is AB Limited, will be liable to pay the DDT, dividend distribution tax, from the date of declaration or from the date of payment. That is, both dates are same, that is 29th January 2018 for the financial year 2017-18. So this is the procedure that you have to follow for computation of dividend distribution of tax. First, you have to gross up the dividend, then you have to charge the tax rate, that is the 15% tax on the gross dividend, then you have to add the surcharge and then you have to add the secondary and higher education cess at the rate of 3%. The amount of DDT will be paid by the company within 14 days from the date of either declaration of dividend, distribution of dividend or payment of dividend, whichever is earlier. You have to consider the date of the three. It may be different dates or it may be the same date, the declaration date, the distribution date and the payment date may be the same. So accordingly, you have to calculate 14 days from the date whichever is earlier of the three options, that is date of declaration, date of distribution and date of payment. So this is all about the dividend distribution tax, and I hope it is the concept of provision 115(o) of the Income Tax Act is clear to you. Thank you.